January 17, 1940. A young Wehrmacht Jeffreiter named Klaus Hoffmann sat in a canvasback truck rattling through the frozen Polish countryside, his breath clouding in the bitter air. The convoy moved at walking speed, conserving precious fuel. Every few kilometers, the column halted as horses dragged supply wagons through mud-choked roads. Klaus stared at his worn boots, patched twice already, and wondered when the promised motorization would arrive. In his knapsack lay a propaganda booklet showing endless columns of gleaming German trucks, promises printed on paper, dreams mired in reality. He could not have known then that 4 years later, on a blood-soaked beach in France, he would witness a vision so overwhelming it would shatter every assumption he held about modern warfare. Germany entered the Second World War with a carefully cultivated image. The mechanized juggernaut, the blitzkrieg machine that crushed Poland in weeks and France in 40 days. Yet this reputation concealed a profound truth. The Wehrmacht remained fundamentally a horse-drawn army. Of the 150 divisions that invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, only 16 were fully motorized. Over 2 million horses served in German ranks, more than in the First World War. German quartermasters calculated logistics in terms of fodder tonnage, not gasoline drums. Their trucks, scavenged from conquered territories, represented 200 different makes and models, a maintenance nightmare that required warehouses full of incompatible spare parts. This was the industrial reality behind the propaganda reels, an army that marched, literally, on hooves and willpower. The German soldier expected his enemy to fight as he did, with cunning and discipline compensating for scarcity. He knew hardship, he knew improvisation, he knew how to splice telephone wire with freezing fingers, how to coax 1 more kilometer from an engine coughing its last breath. What he could not fathom, what no amount of intelligence briefings prepared him for, was abundance. Dawn broke over Normandy on June 6, 1944. And with it came a spectacle that defied comprehension. Through the smoke and thunder, through the naval bombardment that turned the Atlantic Wall into rubble, German defenders glimpsed something that made their blood run cold. Not the soldiers storming the beaches, but what followed behind them? Trucks. An endless, unbroken stream of trucks. They rolled off landing craft by the dozen, by the hundred, by the thousand. GMC 2.5-ton trucks, Studebaker 6x6s, Diamond T transporters, Dodge weapons carriers, each one identical, mass-produced, expendable. They moved in columns that stretched beyond the horizon, their engines roaring in mechanical harmony. To the German defenders, huddled in their crumbling bunkers, it seemed as though America had simply opened a tap and trucks poured forth like water. Oberjefreiter Werner Klest, trapped in a farmhouse near St. Lo, recorded in his diary, "They lose 20 trucks to artillery, and 40 more appear by evening. We knocked out their supply depot yesterday. Today they have built 2 more. It is not war, it is industry. La." His words captured what countless German soldiers witnessed that summer. America did not fight with soldiers alone, but with an economic avalanche. By the end of June, the Allies had landed over 300,000 vehicles in Normandy. The famous Red Ball Express would soon employ 6,000 trucks driving in continuous loops, delivering 12,000 tons of supplies daily to advancing armies. When a truck broke down, American drivers simply abandoned it and commandeered another. There were always more. The psychological impact proved as devastating as the material advantage. German soldiers, trained to scavenge every resource, to repair what could not be replaced, watched their opponents discard equipment as casually as cigarette butts. Captured German reports spoke of material Schlacht, material battle, a term inherited from the Great War, but now transformed into something unprecedented. One Panzer commander noted bitterly, "We fight with tactics, they fight with trucks." He meant it as criticism, but he had identified the essence of American power. Democracy had found its perfect military expression, not in brilliance or brutality, but in sheer crushing productivity. The truck became the symbol of everything the Third Reich could not sustain. Each GMC CCKW represented 7,500 pounds of steel, rubber, and glass produced by factories that never saw a bomb, shipped across an ocean that Germany could not contest, delivered to soldiers who never doubted their supply lines. The truck was certainty made metal. It was the promise that ammunition would arrive, that the wounded would be evacuated, that tomorrow would bring reinforcements. For the German soldier, the truck became the instrument of his defeat, not through firepower, but through inevitability. You could destroy 10 trucks and 20 replace them. You could hold your position, and still the tide of vehicles would flow around you, isolating you, bypassing you, rendering your sacrifice meaningless. In the Falaise pocket that August, as the Wehrmacht disintegrated, the roads told the story in stark visual terms. German retreat routes choked with horse-drawn wagons, abandoned in the thousands when Allied aircraft struck. American advance routes paved with truck convoys moving with the precision of railroad schedules. The contrast was not merely logistical, it was philosophical. One army moved at the speed of exhausted animals. The other moved at the speed of internal combustion. One fought with what it could salvage. The other fought with what it could manufacture. And manufacture, it turned out, mattered more than courage. The trucks kept rolling long after the guns fell silent. They carried the occupiers, the administrators, the architects of reconstruction. They delivered food to a starving continent, coal to frozen cities, hope to a world that had forgotten its shape. Klaus Hoffmann, if he survived, would have seen them in his prisoner of war camp, delivering Red Cross parcels with the same mechanical efficiency they had once delivered artillery shells. The message remained unchanged. We have more. We will always have more. War reveals the nature of nations not in their slogans but in their supply columns. America's genius was never tactical. It was industrial, democratic, unstoppable. The trucks of Normandy did not merely carry supplies. They carried a truth the Axis could never answer. Freedom, it turned out, could be mass-produced.